Okay, we are back with the Enlightenment Part 2. So it's kind of a going off of what we did last week. Just a reminder, so Mrs. Calabrese is done now. She's out having her baby. So I'll show you at the end. But if you have questions, you email me or Mr. Santarcangelo, and I have her information at the end. Okay. So let's get into the Enlightenment Part 2. Okay. So, just a little bit of some background information, okay? In Europe in the mid 1600s to late 1700s, scholars inspired by the scientific revolution started to ask questions like what is the purpose of government? What is the best way for a government to rule its people? And are people born with rights? If so, they should be protected by a government. The philosophers were writing about these questions were part of the Enlightenment. So here's kind of what the definition of the Enlightenment is right here, okay? So this is kind of right there, okay? The Enlightenment was a period of time in the mid 1600s to late 1700s in Western Europe when philosophers and writers applied the scientific idea of reason to answer political questions. The Enlightenment is sometimes known as the Age of Reason. So at this point, they're asking questions about like the ones up here, are people born with rights? Okay, what's the best way to rule a government? And they're using reason. So the reason may be, well, if people are getting ruled, they should have a say in getting ruled, so that kind of idea of democracy, okay, and human rights came out of the Enlightenment. Okay, that is my cat destroying something right now, and there she goes, sprinting across the room. All right, let's read this bottom part. The writers who took part in the Enlightenment are called the Enlightenment thinkers, sometimes known as philosophers, the French word for philosophers. Just as scientists challenge the claims of the Catholic Church, Enlightenment thinkers often challenge claims of absolute monarchs. We study them because of the action that their ideas inspired in later history. Okay, later in history. So that kind of goes back to these ideas right here. So the difference between this and the Renaissance, there was a lot of pushback against the Catholic Church. Remember, the monarchs kind of wanted to get away from the Catholic Church as well because it gave them more power. Well, now with the Enlightenment, it's going to kind of get away from monarchs. They're going to start pushing against that. So, what's the historical circumstances that led to the Enlightenment? This is the question. We're going to go through 4 different things, and this is really the question that you are going to have to answer when you get to those sections. Okay, so let's go to the next section here. You're not going to answer those questions yet. All right. All right. So, what you were supposed to do is watch a video, but the video isn't working. So, this is just a transcript from it. So, I'm going to read this, then you'll have to answer a couple questions. I'm going to try to read it like the guy in the video. The Age of Enlightenment began in Europe in the late 17th century. It would bring about fundamental changes in the way the world was understood and how societies were organized. Until then, the church had dictated or told people what to do, what to think, and how to live. Dissent, disagreeing with those in power, was punished, even by death. But with the Enlightenment, people began to embrace new ideas about freedoms of expression and new rational methods to investigate the world. In England, Newton made the foundations of science as we know it by showing that the universe was governed by physical laws and could be discovered using observation and reason. In philosophy, Enlightenment thinkers like Voltaire and Diderot argued that man, not God, was the center of the world. Ideas were beginning to change, but in the 18th century, most of Europe was still ruled by absolute monarchs. Empowered by Enlightenment thinking in both Europe and America, people began to demand real change. All right, so basically, I know that was really good. Basically, what this is about is people, the church, we talked about this, had dictated or told people what to do. All right, and if you went against the church, you were punished by death. Well, the same when if you went against a monarch, a lot of times you would probably have to be killed. All right, with the Enlightenment, though, people started to kind of question these ideas. Okay, all right, we have the scientific revolutions. We have like Isaac Newton. He's coming up with ideas of like, the law of inertia, physical laws. All right, science is showing the physical laws, not, magic or spirits or anything like that. All right, and then you have these other Enlightenment thinkers or the philosophers were saying that man, not God or not the monarch, should be, what the center of the world is. So think about the 18th century was the 1700s. What do we know happened in the 1700s based on our U.S. history? The American Revolution, right? And then we have the French Revolution coming after that, okay? But those ideas of people having freedoms and rights and should being able to govern themselves that led to the American Revolution, a lot of those ideas came from the Enlightenment, okay?